more difficult.
Adam, do you want to?
I disagree entirely. This administration is absolutely looking at immigration through a racial lens. You can look at the temporary protected status they have removed from many groups, all minority groups. You can look at the refugee status they are allowing from South Africa. They are banning countries from coming in, or people from countries that are black or that look a certain way, but white refugees are the only ones that are being allowed to come in.
Adam Mockler just humiliated Steve Bannon's protege, Natalie Winters, to her face and in front of a live studio audience. Watch what happens when her great replacement rhetoric slams into the reality of his Syrian grandfather and the data she can't refute. If you support calling out MAGA lies, hit like and subscribe. Now, let's watch this together, and I'll give my 2 cents at the end.
Because if you see your role as holding the Trump administration accountable for the America First agenda, in November, President Trump had a really public falling out with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who criticized President Trump over his handling of the Epstein files, foreign interventions, failing to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. And ultimately, she said, you know, I am America First, not MAGA. She feels, perhaps like you do or not, she feels that the Trump administration has abandoned some of its America First policies. Is she right?
I think it's too soon to tell, and I think that to answer that question definitively now is to imply that politics is stagnant and it can't be in flux. Like, there are issues where—
But is she onto something? I mean, it does sound like you agree that there's
and for people who watch War Room, but I think where people maybe misunderstand, where maybe I would humbly and respectfully push back with what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, is that I think to just capitulate and say it's over is to give up, when the Trump administration has shown that they are receptive to the sort of grassroots, their base, calling them out. And I think that people who just want to throw in the towel, that's not the American fighting spirit. I don't think that that's what composes the people who make up the War Room audience. They're willing to make phone calls. They're willing to get involved.
I think when you say you're putting America first, what I'm actually hearing is you're trying to pull the Republican Party in a more radical direction. Putting America first is allowing—
You can call it radical. She would call it populist.
Well, populist, but not populist.
I care about borders.
Well, the majority of Americans think that legal immigration is something that is okay because it benefits the United States. Republicans view immigrants in a fundamentally different way than they view everybody else. You guys view immigrants as net drains on the society, but that is not borne out. You can look at anybody as a drain on the society. I take up housing, you take up electricity, you take up space on the road. So when you say that immigrants take up housing and immigrants take up electricity, it's sort of a myopic view, and they take up jobs because they create. Immigrants also create a lot for this country. I mean, immigrants are net taxpayers. For a personal anecdote, my grandpa moved here from Syria in the late 90s, and you could argue, yeah, he was taking up space. Why was this person from Syria taking up space in the United States? We shouldn't have let him here. But my grandpa has built a business that now employs dozens of people, that feeds dozens of families. I grew up in Indiana, where my community was full of a lot of Muslims who became heart doctors or surgeons or very productive members of society. 30% of working physicians in this country are immigrants, are people who are coming here to help Americans. That is putting America first. How are physicians that are immigrants helping Americans, not putting America first?
Hold on, don't take that. I'm going to ask a question. What I would like you to respond to is there a positive story about immigrants who aspire to live the American dream, that are living it in a way that isn't undermining the American experience for Americans already here? Do you subscribe to that notion in any way? Or do you reject it?
Of course there are some, but the way that you're seeing legal immigration happen now is just historically, empirically, extremely different from the waves that you saw before. You used to have an on period of people coming in and an off period, and the people who would come in would assimilate, much like your grandfather. They would actually, I think, enjoy American culture because you had to. Now, I think you have this sort of weird, perverse left-wing ideology where we're told that assimilation is racist, and I don't think that that works. And I think when you talk about the immigration issue, it's like we have to do this performative, to some extent, ritual where we have to praise immigrants as like the greatest thing that has ever happened to this country. I'm not bashing or nagging all immigrants, but I also think we can appreciate the contributions that Americans have made to this country. The American people have been abused by the legal immigration system. And sure, are there some immigrants that are good? Yes, but there's also a lot of problems with our immigration system. It's a problem of scale. It's too many people.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to show you guys a clip of William F. Buckley Jr. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay, so William F. Buckley Jr. hosted a program called Firing Line for 33 years. In 1979, he actually tackled the question of immigration. How many people should be allowed in and from where? Listen to what he says in this exchange with the first Latino commissioner of the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Take a look.
Well, is the question purely a numerical question, or is it one that has also to do with ethnic balance?
I think it has to do with the whole vision of the country.
If my memory is correct, it was only about 13 or 14 years ago that we officially renounced the preference that had previously been written into the law for two groups. Number one, Western Europeans. Number two, residents of this hemisphere. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've gradually moved toward a non-racial type policy.
Okay, so he's saying we have gradually in our immigration policy moved towards a non-racial policy. There is a sense that sort of implicitly we are moving towards a racial policy for immigration under this administration. The criticism is that the Trump administration wants a whiter America. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely absurd. The idea of populism, economic nationalism, is maximizing the value of what it means to be an American citizen. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I don't care about any of that. I care that first and foremost, you are an American citizen. The American people, my war room audience, they don't care about immigration because of race. They care about it because of American identity, of which we are all Americans, I assume, in here. And that the idea that our government should not be making our lives more difficult.
Adam, do you want to?
I disagree entirely. This administration is absolutely looking at immigration through a racial lens. You can look at the temporary protected status they have removed from many groups, all minority groups. You can look at the refugee status they are allowing from South Africa. They are banning countries from coming in, or people from countries that are black or that look a certain way, but white refugees are the only ones that are being allowed to come in. Stephen Miller's guidance of this immigration policy is absolutely racial.
We have to get to student questions.
Okay.
Olivia Anstadt, freshman political science major. So what's your question?
Thank you for having me. So I think we can all agree that social media is inherently biased towards extremists and very controversial people, seeing as their content invokes emotion and therefore they attract a much larger audience. And that being said, how do we now as a society recenter our popular media around truth, diversity, and good intent in this age that is so fueled by bias and prejudice?
That's a really good question.
Take it.
I don't have the exact answer. I mean, that's a really good question, but I know exactly what you were talking about. The algorithms currently incentivize and promote the most outrageous content. I think this gives us a warped perception of each other, and I think it quite frankly allows extremists to control the media message, and it elects extremists. We are currently living in an environment where the social media incentivization of radicalization is beginning to translate into our electeds being more radical because they're using social media, therefore they're giving more and more radical takes, and they're elected.
What do you think about the algorithms and their ability to potentially throttle or incentivize certain actors?
Well, I think you gotta differentiate it between Elon purchasing Twitter and post.
Definitely.
And I think that a lot of this stuff started in 2017 after President Trump won, where you saw a lot of the elites, Republican and Democrat, it's no secret that the Republican establishment did not want him to win, I think start to be very fearful of free speech on the internet. And after that, that was the advent of what we call the censorship industrial complex, where you saw the propping up, almost overnight, of this whole entire grant-making industry to universities, to NGOs, to the sort of idea of media literacy, where they were funding studies not just to censor misinformation, but these very radical ideas of pre-bunking and debunking misinformation around topics that we all in this room would not agree on are actually misinformation. And that stuff was leveraged to, I don't know, censor the sitting president of the United States and rip him off of like every social media network ever, even probably Uber Eats. So that was the culmination.
Didn't work, did it though?
Well, but this is the point, because the censorship is not actually of falsehoods. It's censorship of ideas that threaten the power of the current ruling elite, the regime, whether or not they think their ideas are true or not. It doesn't matter. They use censorship as a tool of political power.
Okay. Morgan Mighty, class of 2027, what is your question?
Thank you. So I wanted to ask, how should digital influencers be held accountable, given that they often fail to disclose biases while their content also operates within social media algorithms that subtly recommend content that potentially sway users toward particular political affiliations or trains of thought without their knowledge?
It's hard. That's the problem with digital media, is that it's decentralized. Anybody can post anything with any lies at any moment, and it can be boosted in the algorithm. So how do you hold people like that accountable? I guess through tension with people who disagree with them. Like, for example, if I see someone spreading BS in my Twitter algorithm, I quote tweet them, and I make sure that I push back and hold them accountable.
When it comes to, I've heard you talk about sort of your POV and bias, and you're very clear that you have a point of view, you have your own bias, and your position is it's your responsibility to reveal that bias, and the audience then gets to decide what to do with that. Is that a fair characterization of how you would take on that question?
100%. I mean, I don't think I'm unique. I think everybody has a bias, right? And I think that bias can be shown in ways, honestly, beyond just the actual coverage of stories. It's the issues that people choose to cover or not to cover, right? I think this idea of holding people accountable and like always having to outsource what you have within yourself to do. You know how you hold people accountable? If they're lying, don't consume or share their stuff.
Don't reward them for their
like,
lies.
that's my point. You don't have to feed the beast.
Yeah. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of this country. And I think there's like this question about what is it going to mean to be an American into the next century? So I just want to put that question to both of you as we approach our 250th anniversary. You take it first, Natalie.
I think it means to understand and appreciate our founding for what it was, how just amazing and unique and novel, and in a time period where the ideas that they were advancing were so radical, but how we have just come to feel them as second nature. I think that is what it means to be an American. If you go back to those founding documents and the rich, raw, and vigorous debate that they had, I think you can find answers to a lot of questions that we're having now, not just textually, but the spirit of, I believe in something, you believe in something, you believe in something, my audience believes in something, that's why they make their phone calls. It's worth fighting for. We probably shouldn't have won the Revolutionary War, but somehow by the grace of God we did. Yeah. And I think that's what it's about.
Adam?
I agree with a lot of that. I think that the founding of this country was amazing, of course. It's amazing, genuinely. I think the debates that you can read at some of the conventions are very, very interesting, of course. When I think of American values in a present day setting, I think of things like democracy or human dignity or peaceful transfer of power or strength and decency on the global stage. I view America as a leader, a leader of things on the global stage. My fear is a lot of that is being stripped away. So when I think of American values, I think of decency, democracy, peaceful transfer of power. I don't see those being represented by our leadership right now.
All right. Adam Mockler, Natalie Winters, thank you for joining me on Firing Line, and best of luck to you as we watch your careers moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So, what do you think? That was a textbook example of how to dismantle the scarcity mindset. Natalie Winters tried to argue that immigrants are a drain, that they steal your electricity and space on the road. It's a cynical, fearful worldview. But Adam didn't just throw a study at her. He used the story of his grandfather and the fact that 30% of our doctors are immigrants to prove that the American dream is an asset, not a liability. The most telling moment was when Adam forced her to confront the racial double standard of who this movement considers a good immigrant versus a bad one. When you peel back the America First slogan, you usually find a demographic panic underneath, and Adam made sure she couldn't hide it. Was Adam's grandfather argument the knockout blow? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button for more. Thanks for watching.